Hello, true duelists. It's YGO Strats Yu-Gi-Oh! Single Card History, where I'm going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that didn't. Today's card, a hand trap that's been great from day one, it's Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler was first released in Duelist Revolution in 2010 as an ultra rare, or for those who are more cash inclined, it was debuted with an ultimate rare print as well in that same set. Notable reprints to date include a rare printing in Duelist Pack Yusei 3 in 2011, a super rare print in the Order of Chaos Special Edition of 2012, a gold rare printing in 2014's Premium Gold, as well as a peasant rare printing in the Legendary Collection 5Ds Mega Pack, also released in 2014. I'm of course obliged to mention the platinum rare print it got in 2014's Noble Knight of the Round Table box set, but that is a sin and I really don't want to. It also got a Starlight rare printing in 2020's Eternity Code, and because it needs all the rarities in the world, it of course came in the rarity collection of the 25th anniversary style, that is the 25th anniversary rarity collection, in the secret rare, platinum secret rare, quarter century secret rares, as well as a collector's rare, meaning it's really only missing like ghost rare and some really niche like Pharaoh rares and, dual terminal rarities. So it's a card that's been around the printing press, hasn't it? Well, now that I've spent far too long talking about all the variants of cardboard that this thing has, I can tell you it's never been on the ban list, and it almost certainly never will. A level 1 light attribute spellcaster type monster with tuner status and 0 attack and defense, its effect reads: during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. This is another video where I don't feel all too inclined to focus on exact decks that played this, because that's never really been this card's core role in a deck. Certainly, there are cases where it maybe really shined that I'll point out, but this is a quintessential staple of the game, and has been just that for about a decade now at least. So it's much more interesting for that as to why purely it was played as a hand trap to draw off of all those sleepy memories and exactly Pearly, to specify one exact deck particularly. If you started playing the game in mid-2018 or later, the simple way to view Veiler is that it's the original Imperm. And if you started playing before 2010, this is like a targeted skill drain with no cost that you can send from the hand that's also a tuner and chaos fodder. Funny how perspectives change over time. Monster effect negation is, to no shock, a very useful thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's true in both modern Yu-Gi-Oh! For wherever it is you're watching this and whenever you're watching this, as it was in the 2010 formats. Even in the simpler game like 2010 had relative to current Yu-Gi-Oh!, targeted negation of effects could be the difference between winning and losing a duel. Monster effects that activate on summon are of course some of the most obvious choices, from things such as Infernity Archfiend or a Tour Guide from the Underworld, to even things such as Goki Suprex or a Pearly. You can't be certain hitting these sorts of cards will stop the opponent, but you can know you're hitting the opponent in a pretty solid bit of disruption, especially if you've hit those monsters off of a normal summon. Or even stopping a monster from getting its effect can be good in general. Hitting a card like Blackwing Shura the Blue Flame, or an Ally of Justice Catastor with Veiler, on the opponent's turn can keep them from getting free advantage or clearing the board in battle that they might otherwise get to wipe away your board for free with. This is generally less impactful than, say, stopping Castel from resolving, or God forbid, a copy of Madolche Tiramisu, but this is really just a strength for Veiler in that if the situation or duel calls for it, you can make a quote-unquote suboptimal play and still get the results that you might want. If you're watching this video in the context of the current format that I'm making it, that's probably irrelevant, but in some older settings it can definitely come up, and, well, older formats are only getting more and more popular, aren't they? Also mentioned in older situations is Chaos Monsters, which are greatly helped by the addition of Effect Veiler. Not only because of its ability to reliably disrupt the opponent like I mentioned, but because it's pretty well a free light monster in the graveyard, which means teching in Veiler can give decks very playable light monsters to help combo with dark monsters, and hey, you've got a free chaos strategy to help you steal the game. Whether it's the reliable Chaos Sorcerer to remove problem monsters, or Big Daddy BLS himself. And while Chaos has fallen from its prime in the grand scheme, it does still pop up from time to time. Thunder Dragon decks had some Chaos strategies to it, and Dragon Link would make plays with Levianeer, which were both cards that could like having some lights in the graveyard, in which case, Effect Veiler's not the worst choice that you could be playing. And then of course you can't ignore the fact that it's a tuner. Even in 2010 this was a great trait, and it's been that way really since its debut. Turning a level 4 monster into a copy of Catastor was pretty damn solid in 2010, and even better was its combination with a card like Gorz. Gorz being a 2700 beat stick that swung momentum in duels all by itself made it a staple already, and getting to use the free token it summoned with itself and a copy of Effect Veiler to make a free Synchro 8 play was nothing short of amazing. A Stardust to protect your board, or maybe a Scrap Dragon to help break the opponents, along with that 2700 Gorz itself, could be very brutal to have to deal with and could very suddenly cost you the game. And while plays like this took a back seat come the Xyz era, it was still a solid way to make a Synchro play in the mid-2010s and in future decks going forward from, again, 2010 through to now. Level 1 tuners, not really a bad thing. It became great again in the Link era, of course, due to the existence of the Link 2 monster named Halqifibrax that could turn any tuner into some truly crazy boards. Granted, Veiler was never the ideal tuner for making your Halqifibrax plays, but when your hand trap can become full combo in a pinch, that's not really something people are going to complain about. Or at least not justifiably. What's Veiler's key strength as a hand trap, however, is of course the lack of a once per turn on the card. If you have 2 or 3 in the hand and your opponent tries to use 2 or 3 monster effects, you can just use Veiler on each one of them without hesitation. This is a nice trait compared to more modern hand traps such as Ass Blossom or Ghost Ogre with those hard once per turns. It also has the edge over its biggest competition in Infinite Impermanence by not caring whether or not you have cards on your board. That isn't always a game changer, but it has come up from time to time. Take for example in, again, Purrely. Veiler came up often in Purrely decks since drawing it off the Sleepy Memory effect encouraged the deck to play hand traps, but it's best with ones that you can get the most use out of. So while Ash and Imperm were common in the deck, Veiler could also shine because you could use any Veilers you draw on the turn you draw them, in tandem with the fattest of cats. And speaking of Imperm, it's really the most often compared card to Veiler, sometimes even referred to as the power creep version of it. And while there are arguments that that can be true, the two cards are notably different. Veiler has to be used during the opponent's main phase, and that's it. There's no draw phase shenanigans or standby phase with Veiler, which severely hinders it in comparison to Imperm, which can stop cards in the draw or standby phase, and it was important if, say, dealing with a VFD or other such brutally bullshit monster cards. Veiler will also need to be discarded to the graveyard to get its effect, meaning a Macrocosmos type effect on board, be it Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, Dark Law, Kashtira, Arise Heart, whatever, it would prevent you from using Veiler in any capacity. It just shuts it off entirely. And that's another thing that Imperm will not care for. But as mentioned, the functionality as a tuner and a monster in general can offer more plays, be it for simple link spam or synchro shenanigans. And a level 1 tuner is a very useful thing to have. Again, I'll say that twice, and if I'll say it 3 times, I'll bring it up later just because of how damn true it is. What the true it is? What is speaking? They're very similar cards, but they're pretty different in very important ways. So while you can, for the most part, mix and match between them when you're building a deck, those little niche differences can make truly impactful differences when it comes to building your deck to be as optimal as it can be, or for the meta that you're playing in, or other such things. So while, yeah, for the most part, 99% of the times these two cards are pretty interchangeable, it's not 100% of the time, and that is something to be mindful of. Veiler is also a spellcaster, which I feel the need to mention because if you're playing Veiler and the opponent is playing Secret Village or the Spellcasters, Veiler can be a fucking lifesaver. And while that's not a common thing at all in the grand scheme of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, if you've ever been able to top deck a Veiler and summon it to use your spell cards when facing Secret Village, you will know how fucking wonderful that feels, and as such, I will not neglect to mention it in this video. Overall, Effect Veiler is a card as old as it is reliable. It's been a staple of the game since its release in 2010, being the first kind of flexible purpose card of its kind. Hand traps did exist before this, Karibo, and played ones like Maxx C, but the tuner status elevated Veiler in a way Maxx C never really was. Not that the bug needed fucking elevating, as time has proven to us. That card aside, Effect Veiler doubling his disruption on the opponent's turn to prevent key monster effects and stop their plays, as well as being a tuner for synchro or just link plays in general, gave plenty of decks access to a variety of monsters they might not otherwise have had access to. Stardust Dragon or Catastor in a Gadget deck is pretty solid, and only doable thanks to something like Effect Veiler, or, you know, a skillful mind control, but as the game has evolved, the lack of a once per turn offers a viability for Veiler compared to the abundance of other hand traps, even its biggest competitor in Infinite Impermanence, especially when looking at the number of cards you're allowed to have on the field when activating them. And while it may not be as powerful as it was a decade ago, it's still a great card, which is a very impressive thing for a card that was being played all the way back in things like Dino Rabbit. And so that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, Effect Veiler. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats to impress your smokin' Italian wife, and so of course you too can be a true duelist. Oh, there you go. I'm trying one in this format. These scripts are not kind to me, so there might be some more jump cuts than I like, and maybe you don't give a shit at all, because these are just videos to listen to. But let me know what you think. Do you prefer me? Do you prefer Fee in front of this shit, in front of this pizza shit? Get that fucking right back. Back to the... There you go. Let me know, because I ask. There you go. That's fucking why. There you go. You want a reason? You want a fucking reason? Let me know what you think. And in the meantime, have a great fucking day. This may or may not be the new standard for single card histories moving forward. We'll find out next week. And until then, stay tuned for the update probably. That's all I got. Fucking see ya. Chaos monsters, which can't be ignored, which are greatly helped by the existence of Veiler. Not only because this was a